Four of the biggest movie franchises in history are Star Wars and the Harry Potter movies, the Avengers, and the X-Men. And I'd like to reflect a little bit about something that they have in common that is relevant to the baptism of the Lord and you and I. But don't worry, this isn't one of those movie homilies. I'm not going to bend over backwards and try and tell you how George Lucas has evangelized the world with Star Wars and it's exactly Catholic, nor am I going to rant and rave against Star Wars or Harry Potter or the Avengers or X-Men and saying that if you watch them, you're going to be completely misled and it all is going to end badly, right? Neither one, okay? This isn't going to be this huge breakdown of a film or anything along those lines. I don't think anyone's left the Catholic Church because of these films, nor do I think too many people have come to the Catholic Church because of Star Wars. So we still kind of stand where we're at in needing to go out and evangelize. But there is something that's common to all of those movie franchises, I think, that can at least give us a jumping off point, okay, for a reflection on the baptism of the Lord. Here's what I want to talk about in regards to those films and you and I in the baptism of Christ. Okay, in the Star Wars movies, there are how many Jedi, the people that are the powerful, have special powers and are the ones that are out leading the fight? How many are there of the larger population? Probably about 0.000001% of the people in the Star Wars universe have these magical Jedi powers, okay? You don't need to have even seen the movies to be with me, okay? How many wizards in the Harry Potter world? If you've never seen it, doesn't matter. But the point is that only very small percentage of the larger universe of people have some kind of special power, okay, to be a wizard in the Harry Potter universe. If you go to the X-Men or the Avengers, it's the same thing. A very small percent of people have been given some sort of special power to be a hero, and everyone else is normal and is not given that power. Now, I think that we do buy into that sort of larger story. And again, I'm not sitting here ranting and raving against the films. I like them. I've seen them all many times. It illustrates, though, a general idea that's out there in the church, like in the history of the church, a huge problem that the church has fought against and has had lots of discussions about. And that is the belief that some Christians and Catholics throughout history have said only a small percentage of people are given special powers by God, and the rest of us are not. 0.001 or 1% of us are called to be heroes, are called to be saints, are given special graces, and everyone else is just sort of floating along, right? That's not true. But people might point to a couple things, and they might say, well, we only have a few named saints. Of all the history of the world, of all the history of the Catholics, only 0.0001% of them have been named saints. And then the other thing that people point to is it does appear, when you look at the history of the world, and particularly even in our own time, lots of Catholics seem to be very numb and uninterested and not really believing that they have special powers. Well, unfortunately, neither of those are actually evidence, right? We do only have a very small percentage of people that are named saints, but the church doesn't believe that those are necessarily the only people in heaven. There could be billions more people. People look at the saint process and there's lots of critiques about it. Oh, it costs money and you got to get a lawyer to promote your cause. The church puts forward some people by name because of their story and the life that they've lived, and because there's been an opportunity to investigate them, to hold them up and to say, this is one way, this is what a life looks like lived devoted to God, and we know that this person's in heaven. There could be billions more, right? It's very important to understand that we're not saying that only 2,000 people that we know of necessarily have lived the life of a saint, right? I'm assuming that most of the 25,000 children that starve to death today are also in heaven. The church doesn't have time to investigate each of their causes because there's 25,000 of them that die every day. But again, that doesn't mean that we don't think that all of these people aren't in heaven, right? We just believe that it's good to look at and examine certain people's cases because they lived a life of such outstanding and public or heroic in a heroic way. Anyway, moving on. My point in that is this, right? When we celebrate today the baptism of the Lord, right, we hear this line that's said about Christ when he goes into the water and comes up, and we see the people that are there are given this insight into this fact that the Father, and he says, "This is my beloved Son." The Holy Spirit is coming down upon him. He says, "This is my chosen one with whom I am pleased, upon whom I put my Spirit. He will bring justice to the nations." My point in all of that is this. God the Father, if you are a baptized Christian, okay, if you have been baptized as a Christian and a Catholic, God the Father pours his Holy Spirit down on you just like he does his Son, and he is giving you all of the power and all of the grace that you need to be a hero and to be a saint. And God the Father says the same thing to you. "This is my son or daughter in whom I am well pleased." He or she, God is saying, the Father is saying to you, you are tasked, I am asking you to bring forth justice to the nations, to be a light to the world, to do the things that my son did. You're asked to do that in your baptism as well. Not just 1% of us, not just some people that have special abilities or special traits or special characteristics or are good public speakers or whatever it is. Every single person in their baptism is called to be a saint and a hero. If you believe that, if you believe that you've been given the grace to be a hero and a saint, and I hope that you do believe that, one thing that I think the movies get right, again, among lots of other things that I'm not going into today, but one of the things that those films and most of our other stories get right is, even if they get it wrong that only a small percentage of people are given what's needed to be a hero, the films and stories in our culture do, I think, typically say that everyone that does have that power needs a few things. The Luke Skywalkers, the Harry Potters, all of the people that are given these special powers in these stories, first of all, one of the things that they need in all of those stories, and that you and I need as well, is a deeper knowledge of the gifts that have been given to us. Right? Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, hero, whoever you want to sub in for this, that was given natural gifts and powers from the very beginning of their lives, still didn't understand and needed to learn about those powers. Needed to learn more about what had been given to them from the beginning. I was baptized when I was a week old. I had no idea what was happening. And maybe that's a lot of us, right? Most of us are baptized as children. Maybe not, but a lot of us are. We probably didn't know what was happening. Thus, we're given the same thing that Jesus Christ is given, the Holy Spirit and the power and the gifts to become a hero. But it takes a learning about those powers. That's why we have religious education for our children. That's why parents are told to be sure to teach and raise their children in the teachings of the faith. That's why we have a catechism. That's why I spent 4 hours every Wednesday for the last 4 years teaching a class online to our high school students and our middle school students. That's why we teach the people that desire to come into the church about the teachings of the faith, because we need to understand the powers that we have already been given. Every single person has them. Not just the Luke Skywalkers or the Harry Potters, all of us. But we have to understand, and we come to know and learn more about those powers, or we ignore them. And we don't. And the other thing that's common to people, I think, in those stories, that is also common for you and I, and applies to our hero status, is that they needed, and you and I need, training from others. We need people with us in the fight. None of them is a lone warrior. We all do it together better, and we need people who have been there already, have been through the discovery process, etc., who can help train us in unpacking the powers that we were given when we were a week old. And so we have that. We have that in the teachings of the church, in the saints, in the person sitting next to you in the pew tonight. Some of the time in those films, they're trained by dead people. We have the saints that are there to help train us. Their writings live on, their teachings live on. So I think we see some of these similarities, and I think we can then just say, we live in a world that needs heroes, right? People who will stand up for the unborn, the poor, the refugee and the immigrant, the abused person, the bullied person at school or work, the neglected, the jailed, the marginalized. The world needs heroes, and the world needs you and me, who can show people we're not slaves to our attractions and our desires, that it's possible to put ourselves aside and serve others. Heroes who will be good stewards of the environment, who can live simply, who are not there to conquer people in relationships or financially or in any other way, who aren't afraid to speak up in the face of evil being done, who can pray and spend time in silence and can serve and love. The world needs you as a baptized Christian to be the hero that God is giving you the power to be. God looks at you and says, "Here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one with whom I am pleased, upon whom I have put my spirit. You will bring forth justice to the nations." Or you can run from your powers, ignore them, and just seek to be average and a lukewarm Christian.